The Fancounters Celebrity Podcast, number 173. Coming to you from nowhere near the entertainment capital of the world, this is the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast.
You were like the carrot top of interviewers.
Wow, how disappointing was that question?
You did not just ask me that.
Well, that's a big question.
Never mind, I'm done. I'm not doing the show.
Wow, I can't believe it.
I'm telling you, I'm hooked.
Nick.
Yeah, he's so awesome. He's so a good friend of mine.
Welcome to the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. My name's Nick.
And I'm Tracy.
And you can find us on social media. If you go to Fancounters Live on Instagram, you can search Fancounters on Facebook. And if you want the private group, it's Sharpie Nation. Email us at hello@fancounters.com. So, Tracy, I have a story for you today.
Uh-oh.
My wife will not be happy that I'm telling you this story, though.
What did you do?
No, it's not anything I did.
Oh, it's not you?
Not this time, anyway. So I'm getting ready in the morning, and I'm just listening to the conversation that's going on in the kitchen. Our bedroom's just down the hall from the kitchen, and my daughter got her bagel stuck in the toaster.
Uh-oh.
And I hear my wife say, "Get a knife from the drawer and take it out." I yelled.
Oh, a silverware knife.
A metal knife.
Oh.
I yelled from the thing, "Wait, stop!"
As you're running down the hallway,
Yes.
right?
Half dressed. I said, "Do not put a metal knife in a toaster. You will kill our child."
Yeah, she'd have her hair would be permanently standing up.
Yeah, but doesn't it you know?
Yeah, but I don't think it would.
Oh, see, I thought you could die from doing that.
I don't know. I mean, it's possible maybe, but I'd worry more about water, dropping a toaster in water.
Well, I worry about that too.
Yeah.
Anyway, it wasn't a secret, though, that my wife, during our wedding reception all those years ago, almost 2 decades now, had her college roommate tell her about the time when she put a metal bowl in the microwave. So my wife's great at a lot of things. The kitchen might not be the best one.
A metal bowl.
And now I'll sleep on the couch tonight.
Yes, you will.
Because she's like, "Why did you say that?"
A metal bowl in the microwave. Mm-hmm. How long did that microwave last?
I don't know. Look, I was at the theater, which I'm designing sound for a show here locally. And I was at the theater programming all my sounds in the board. And people were building the set. And guess what they were listening to?
One of our podcasts.
No. They were listening to Smartless with Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes. And I thought to myself, and I was listening to this podcast, and I was listening to the laughing and the nonsense that was going on, and I thought, you know what? It's been a long time since I've shown our audience why I don't like Smartless.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So we're going to do that at the end of the show today. So if you want to hear why Smartless is such a horrible podcast, you'll find out after our interview with our guest today. And that is Marc Summers.
Yeah.
Marc Summers hosts Double Dare. They did a reunion show a year or so ago. He's going to tell us a little bit about. But obviously, he's from my childhood. I would race home and watch Double Dare at 5 o'clock while my parents were getting dinner ready. And, as soon as dinner was on the table, the show was ending. And I was a very happy camper.
Did you want to get messy like he did all the time?
I did. Oh, my gosh. I wanted to be on that show so much. But as we've talked about before, I'm not game show material because having tried out for Family Feud and Let's Make a Deal, I've gotten no phone calls.
For neither one of them?
No. Apparently, my personality is not lunaticish enough.
You have to work on that.
It's not going to happen. Anyway, so let's get on with our interview. This is Marc Summers, host of Double Dare. He hosted Unwrapped on the Food Network. He's a part of my childhood, and probably based on our audience lately, he was probably part of yours too. This is Marc Summers on the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. He's a part of probably based on our audience lately. He was Marc Summers. Welcome to the Fancounters Celebrity Podcast. Thanks for being here. Network. He's a part of probably based on our.
It's COVID times. What else do I have to do?
What else are you going to do? So, a child you once met told you that you made my parents' lives. So I got to tell you right now that you're kind of completing my life right now, because I watched you growing up, obviously, on Double Dare, and it was, it's just great that we got linked up for you to be here. So I appreciate that very much.
My pleasure. I love hearing those stories. People come up to me and say, I know you don't want to hear this, but it's like, well, why wouldn't I want to hear it? If I brought, good memories to you growing up and you still have those good memories. The good thing about the audience such as you that I've had all these years is you started with me at Nickelodeon and you watched Double Dare, What Would You Do?
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went over to Food Network and was doing Unwrapped and all those other shows, you folks were nice enough to follow me over there. So I have got this loyal fan base and, why wouldn't I want to, hear that you guys enjoyed this stuff? It's fantastic. I love it.
You were in your 30s when you started hosting the Double Dare game show. Were you always a fan of game shows? Like, was that the goal? Like, this is what I want to do?
It was. I was 34 when I got Double Dare. I used to stay home from school, pretend I was sick, and watch game shows that on NBC, CBS, and ABC. They were on, all day long. And so I loved Bob Barker on Truth or Consequences when it was on NBC. I was in Miss Helm's nursery school class, and I would come home, and around noon or 11 o'clock in the morning, Barker was on doing that. And the first job I had at CBS Television City as a page, I was a page on Price is Right and got to meet him, and then ended up writing on Truth or Consequences. This last year he did it in syndication. And so, I was a game show freak. And, back in the day when I started out in L.A., it was still sort of a honorable and recognizable, job to be a game show host. But now there are no game show hosts. The Jack Berrys, Peter Marshalls, Wink Martindales of the day don't exist because now the geniuses who are doing television feel that you have to be a movie star to host a game show. And some do it okay. Most aren't particularly good at it.
Correct.
Because it's not their focus. I'll make a deal with these guys. I won't do movies if you won't host shows,
That's a good idea.
They didn't make that deal with you, though.
Hey, when they made the announcement that Aaron Rodgers was going to host a week of Jeopardy, I posted a picture with me. I put my head on his body, and I said, well, hell, then I'll just be a quarterback then, because apparently if quarterbacks can host TV shows, then TV show hosts should be able to be quarterbacks. Why not?
I didn't see him do that, but he has no personality to begin with in his interviews. He's a very monotone kind of guy. I'm like, that's who you want for a week of Jeopardy? Thanks.
That whole thing is so strange. That's hours of conversation. But what can I tell you? It's a different industry.
All right, hit him up.
All right. Your road to Double Dare took many paths from being a professional magician to being a comic at the Comedy Store. But one job that intrigues me is the warm-up guy for television series. That guy who entertains the people who come to watch a TV taping. I'm sure being a comic got you the job, but it certainly had to have turned up your improv skills.
Well, I didn't even know what a warm-up guy was. And I was a page at CBS Television City. And then on certain nights, I got to work both as a page on the Mary Tyler Moore Show and on the Bob Newhart Show. And there was this brilliant producer by the name of Lorenzo Music. And Lorenzo Music, who became Carlton the Doorman on the Road to TV series, was a quirky, unusual, funny man. And I was mesmerized by his ability to keep the audience entertained. And so the one thing I learned about show business early on is if you want to work in this business, you have to lie. And so I went into his office because I had my little CBS page outfit on that had the CBS eye and all that stuff. And I said, hi, Mr. Music. My name is at the time Mark Berkowitz, and I do warm-ups too. And he said, you do? On what shows? And I just start making stuff up. I had never done a warm-up in my entire life. And he said, well, that's interesting. And I said, well, if there's ever one that you can't do, here's my number. There was no emails back then. Here's my number. Mm-hmm. Call me, and I'd love to fill in for you. And he actually said, thank you. And I walked out of the office. Well, the next week, he called me and said, we're doing a CBS pilot called Doc, starring Barnard Hughes, who's a Broadway star. And they want me to do the warm-up, but I can't. I'm busy. Would you do it instead? Wow. Now, can you imagine? Okay. And I said, sure. I hung up and I went, holy shit, now what do I do? Okay. And so my stand-up act wasn't particularly, seasoned at that point, but I had been a magician for many years. And I started just making notes for like the next 6 days. And Ed Weinberger was exec producer, and he said, what shows do you work on? And I lied and told him I worked as a warm-up guy on Price is Right. He started making fun of me. He kept going, come on down. And, oh, you're a game show guy. And he made fun of me. Well, I went out there and I kicked ass. Okay. How? I have no idea. But Grant Tinker, who at the time was the president of MTM, ran down the stairs as I was going up the stairs. He hugged me and he goes, "That was the most magnificent warm-up job I've ever seen in my entire life." And I thought, I'd never done. Of course, I didn't tell him that.
Yeah.
And he said, "We'll keep you in mind." And so when the series got picked up, sadly, I didn't get the job because I called Mr. Tinker and said, "Hi, remember me? I did the pilot." And he goes, "Mark, I'm the CEO of this deal, but I have people who do jobs that, if I don't trust them, what's the point?" So I didn't get that job. But Mac Davis was doing a variety show on NBC, and I applied to be a writer. But I didn't get the job. And as I got turned down by Danny Simon, who was Neil Simon's brother, who was the head writer on the show, I said, "Well, do you have anybody doing the warm-ups?" And he said, "No." And I said, "Well, how about me?" And he goes, "Okay, if you want to." So I started doing the warm-ups on the Mac Davis show. And then we had regulars on, Shields and Yarnell, who were mimes. And Shields and Yarnell got their own show at CBS. And I became the warm-up guy over there on CBS. I then started doing stand-in and background work for sitcoms, and I was working on a TV show called Soap. And I noticed the warm-up guy was just adequate. And so the next season, so they finished the season in February, and I knew they were going to start up July or August. So Tony Thomas, Danny Thomas's son, and Paul Witt were the exec producers. And I called Paul and I said, "Hi, my name is Mark. I've done some stand-in work on Soap. I don't know if you're going to stay with the same warm-up guy or not, but I'd love to throw my hat in the ring." And he goes, "We were just having that conversation. We're not in love with them. We're doing a run-through this week with an audience on Thursday night. Why don't you come in and do the warm-up? If we like you, you can do the season. And if not, we'll see you." And I went in and did it, and I got the job for the next 3 years. Well, Soap was the hottest show going on.
Oh, yeah.
So now think about this. I was doing Soap at Sunset Gower Studios. At the studio next to me was a show called Bosom Buddies with Tom Hanks.
Okay.
Bob Saget was doing the warm-ups on that show. And to the left of me, Barney Miller, when they first started, had an audience, eventually got rid of it. But Dave Letterman was doing the warm-up on Barney Miller. So it was Dave, myself, and Saget. And because Soap was such a hot entity, believe it or not, Gary Shandling was doing the warm-ups on Alice, the TV show Alice, and they didn't like him. They came to watch me at Soap. They offered me the job, and for the next 8 years, I did warm-ups on Alice. So I did Alice on Tuesday nights. I did Hour Magazine Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Wednesday nights, I did Star Search. Thursday night, I did Star Search. Friday night, I did Soap. When Soap went off, I did Webster. When Webster got canceled, I did What's Happening Now. And on the weekends, I did game shows. Mondays were my only days off. So back, I'm trying to think when this was, late 70s, early 80s, I was doing warm-up 6 days a week, making six figures, and nobody had any idea.
See, he's talking about all the shows that, I'm familiar with.
Yeah, well, you did mention Webster. I know that one.
Yeah.
So that's fun. It's funny because every time, I have Emmanuel Lewis on my Instagram, and he goes live a lot.
Does he really?
Oh, yeah, and he just sits there and jamming to music, and he's like bopping up and down, and that's his whole live. But he'll get like 1,500 people watching him do nothing. It's amazing.
One day, the show had been off for a while, and fast forward the tape 10 years, I was in Atlanta catching a midnight flight to Los Angeles, and here, sitting on a chair at Hartsfield Airport on a computer, smoking a cigar, he goes, "Hey, Mark, how are you?" And I look down, and I go, "Manny?" He goes, "Yeah." So I was like, Manny was smoking a cigar on his computer, man. What can I tell you? I haven't seen him in years. I'm trying to figure out. He must be like, how old? Like 50 now, right? I'm trying to figure that out.
He's got to be.
Probably.
Yeah.
Nice kid. His mother was super, and she looked after him. Michael Jackson used to come on the set all the time.
I have read that he was. Yeah. Do you have any stories about that?
He used to pick up Manny and carry him around. It was weird.
Yeah, anytime you say stuff like that, I'm like, I don't know if I really want to know all the stories. You could probably tell, but
I've got them, man. Let me tell you.
Let's talk about Double Dare a little bit.
Yeah, I heard you mention that there were over 2,000 people who auditioned to host Double Dare, and you rose above all of them. Doesn't that shock you that they didn't find magic in any of the first 1,000 people they saw in New York before looking in L.A.?
Well, initially, here's the story that I've been told. They wanted Soupy Sales, and then they realized they thought he was too old. And then the next story was they offered the job to a young guy by the name of Dana Carvey. And Dana was going to take the job, and the same week he had auditioned for Saturday Night Live and got that, and called up Nick and said, Sorry. So they auditioned 1,000 people in New York, didn't like anybody, came to LA. I was the first guy to audition in Los Angeles. And when I got done with the audition, I ran out to the phone booth because there were no cell phones and called my agent and said, I've nailed this. I got it. And he went, yeah, good luck. I got 12 other clients, going in. So, good luck. Well, I got 3 callbacks. And the one thing I learned back in the day was when you meet the exec producer and you meet the casting director, you get their name and phone number. And so after 3 callbacks, I did one in like July, a couple in August, and I realized that they were going to start shooting in Philadelphia in September, and I didn't hear from them. So I called Mike Klinghoffer, who was exec producer. I said, hey, Marc Summers, how are you? And he goes, funny, we're just talking about you. And I said, why? And he goes, well, we think we have it narrowed down to you and one other guy. But, when we did the auditions, we had adults playing the part of kids. So we don't know if you're good with kids or not. I said, well, I have 2 kids. He goes, yeah, well, that doesn't mean anything. And I said, well, I was a magician and I used to perform at kids' party. He goes, yeah, that doesn't mean anything. So I said, well, why don't you put me and whoever this other guy is in a studio? Let us perform the show from top to bottom with real life kids and let the best man win. He said, I'll call you back. So a half hour later, he called me back. This was Labor Day weekend of '86. He said, what are you doing over the weekend? I said, coming to New York and doing an audition with a bunch of kids. He said, you got it. So they flew me to New York. And I went in and I did the show from top to bottom. I left. Whoever this other person was, to this day, I don't know who it was, went and did the same thing. 2 days later, the phone rang and they said, congratulations, you're the host of Double Dare. And I said, well, let me ask you a question. After talking to 1,000 people in New York and 1,000 in LA, why did I get the job? And he said, well, quite honestly, you and the other guy were about the same. But at the end of his audition, he looked in the camera and said, is that it? Or you guys want me to do something else? And I looked in the camera and said, we'll be back with more Double Dare right after this. And because I threw it to commercial, they thought that was more professional. It changed my life, and that's why I got the job.
That's pretty cool. That's really cool.
True story.
You lasted 65 episodes without having to get messy, but something changed where the kids wanted you to start participating a little bit more, and you did get messy. So what was it like the very first time? Did it feel weird?
Well, if you look at the first 65, I was pristine. I learned how to dodge that stuff pretty easily. And when they took it to focus groups after the first airings, they said, kids want you to get messy. Kids thought I was like a crazy uncle or an older brother. They didn't realize I was, 34, married and had a couple of kids.
It doesn't look like it looking back either.
Yeah. And so, the deal was they said, you got to get messy because the kids want that. And at the time I was wearing penny loafers and they had just made a deal with Reebok and they said, you got to wear sneakers and all that stuff. And, I hadn't been diagnosed with obsessive compulsive disorder yet. I knew I didn't like getting messy and stuff like that. But, it was part of the gig. I had been waiting so long to get my own show. I wasn't going to let anything get in my way. And, I defy anybody to look at any of those episodes. I was having the time of my life. Now, when the camera stopped and we were done, I wanted to get clean, but I never showed that on the air at all, so I was fine with it.
Cool.
Very cool. Double Dare was on the air well before someone could, do searches on the internet. So, was there a team of people who thought up all of the physical challenges, obstacle course stunts, and how long did it take for them to get these ideas to come to life on the set?
Alan Silverberg, head writer, still one of my best friends, had a great team of people that he worked with. And every night after we'd get done shooting 5, sometimes 6 episodes a day, from about 7 to 9, we brought in local kids from wherever we were shooting, Philadelphia, New York, Orlando, and we tested physical challenges. And they just thought of the craziest things you've ever seen in my entire life. And they had to work 3 times. If they weren't completed 3 times, we didn't put them on the air. And the same thing with the obstacles. They thought of, Byron Taylor was the guy who created most of those obstacles. And, giant version of my head, the nose, all those things. They had a free run of whatever they wanted to do and figured out how to do it. We did one physical challenge once where kids were on one side and there was a mailbox and we had paper airplanes and they had to send the paper airplane over to the mailbox. And if you got one in the mailbox in 20 seconds or less, you won the physical challenge. And I wasn't there that night for the practice. So I walked out during rehearsal and they said, so here's the object. We put 10 paper planes on a table here, mailboxes over there across the stage and send them over. If you get one in 20 seconds, you win. I went, okay, that's bullshit. There's no way in hell you're going to be able to send a paper plane and get it in that mailbox. They said, well, we tested it. It worked 3 times. Oh, great. So we're shooting that day. And I said, okay, here's a physical challenge that I'm not terribly crazy over. We have 10 airplanes over here. And we have a mailbox. You have 20 seconds to get one in the mailbox. And I looked at the camera and I said, and if you do it, I'll give you my house. Okay.
I know
So
where this is going.
the kid picks out, I said, Marcus said, go. The first airplane goes right in.
Oh.
They come up with an extreme close up of me. And I said, okay, we'll talk, So,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. And that was the fun part. We never stopped. We did something once where I was doing, 5-6 shows a day. So upwards of, 30 plus shows a week. And then I was doing a show called Couch Potatoes in Los Angeles. It was a TV trivia show. And so I would do Double Dare Monday through Friday. Friday night, I catch the route. I fly back to LA. I do 5 shows Saturday, 5 on Sunday. Sunday, catch the route. I go back to Philly. And I did this for 2 years, back and forth. And half the time, I didn't know what planet I was on. I was living in hotels, and my kids were calling me Uncle Daddy. I was never home. It was just nuts. And
That's awful.
And one day, some kid got just clobbered with slime, and I said, "Oh my God, you got slime up the yin yang." Okay, and then I looked at Mike Klinghoffer, the producer on the floor, and I said, "We got to stop tape." And he goes, and I said, "Well, I can't say up the yin yang," and he said, "Keep going." So a few more questions, buzzer rang, and I said, "We'll be back with round 2 right after this." And I said, "Mike, we can't say on a kid's show up the yin yang." He said, "Just stand by. We got a few more minutes." He went to the art department, and they made the yin and the yang sign. And when I came back from commercial, I said, "So what I meant about up the yin, this is a Asian sign for the yin, and this is the yang. So this is what I meant." And we used to do that stuff all the time. New York wasn't watching us. Those episodes still air now on it. Became Paramount Plus today. It was CBS All Access. And so they have the 250 best of Marc Summers Double Dare episodes you can see. And those things pop up, and people can't believe that, we said those things back in 86, 87, 88, but we did.
Crazy. Now, I've heard you talk a little bit about cheating on the show, and it wasn't the kids so much that did the cheating, but the adults. How do you cheat on Double Dare? And did you catch someone and have to punish them? Tell me about that.
Well, sometimes they try and look over around my shoulder to look at answers on questions on cards, which is why you have to sort of keep them in a particular situation. And on the obstacle course, they would somehow drag their kid or push their kid or, try and do stuff. And we had one once when we were giving cars away. We were on Fox Saturday nights at 8:00 leading off the lineup. And we were giving away, trips to Europe and cars. And parents would be insane. And a kid was reaching for the flag on obstacle number 8, and he missed it and went to 0. And the parent went nuts. "Oh my God, it was a van. We needed that van." And backstage, the parent had the kid up against the wall by the neck and was like, "You little son of a bitch. I can't believe, And it's like we had to separate them because it's like the kids did it for fun.
Yeah.
And the parents were like, they wanted to win,
Wow.
So what can I tell you?
Crazy.
That is.
Yeah.
Microphones. How many microphones were damaged and deemed unusable in the run of the show?
Well, I got them, obviously, both lavs and stick mics buried in slime and water.
All the time.
Mark, our audio guy, used to go nuts. But believe it or not, he would take them apart, dry them, and put them back together. And as far as I know, never lost one.
Wow.
Hair dryers were saving our lives back in the day when we were trying to dry the components that were going into those mics. But no, we didn't lose one.
They're probably much better built than they are these days.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, trust me.
So you've normally we ask about your favorite encounters with fans, but right now you've spent over 30 years working with celebrities, and you did Celebrity Double Dare. Do you have any favorite celebrity encounter stories you want to share with us?
Well, Lou Ferrigno, sweet guy. We were doing the Fox version. He came up to my room at the Four Seasons, knocked on the door, and I opened it up, and there's Lou Ferrigno, and he touches my stomach, and he goes, "Mark, you need to work out more," and kept trying to sell me these very expensive treadmills that apparently he sponsored. A sweet guy. We had Weird Al Yankovic on, and, we write question 1 is a give me on Double Dare. Question 2 is a 50-50, and question 3 should go to a physical challenge. But no matter what we did, Weird Al answered every question. And I said to him, "Man, we write these questions to go to physical challenge. How do you know all the answers to these strange questions?" And he said, "Hey, Mark, that's my gig." So, he was fantastic. I've met, so many throughout the years when I was doing warm-ups. Certainly interacting with everybody from, Dolly Parton to Lana Turner. and everybody in between. I got to meet all my heroes, Jimmy Cagney, Jimmy Stewart, old movie stars, became friends with Jerry Lewis. And so, to pinpoint it would be difficult. The interaction that I got, I'm a science and history fanatic, and I love old history. And I was obsessed with the Hearst Castle up in San Simeon, and did some research and found out that Jimmy Stewart used to go to the Hearst Castle back in the day. He didn't get married till later in life, and I guess he was somewhat of a playboy. And I walked up to him after I was doing warm-ups on Hour Magazine, and I said, Mr. Stewart, my name is Mark, and I was just up at Hearst Castle, and I heard stories about you. And he got this big smile on his face, and I don't do a good Jimmy Stewart, but he went, whoa, 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 whoa. You've heard the expression swinging from the chandeliers? And I said, yes. He said, well, when Mr. Hearst went to bed, we literally swung from the chandeliers, and he told me stories that Mr. Hearst had all these statues, Greek and Roman statues. And he said, at night there's this indoor pool. And I guess there's some interesting things that went on in that indoor pool. But they took women's, as he called them, we took the negligees, and they put them on these statues so that when Mr. Hearst would drive to the zoo where he went down and fed the lions and the giraffes and the zebra, they wanted him to see this, but the staff would get up earlier. And so when they woke up and saw on their way down to the zoo that all these statues had, bras and sheer negligees, they were trying to steal the stuff off it before Mr. Hearst came down. So all these sort of behind the scenes stories that I got to know. The Jerry Lewis stories are way too long. We had a bizarre relationship, but it's been a fun life. And I guess part of the answer to your question is be careful meeting your heroes, because a lot of times you'll get disappointed. Trust me.
Are you going to write a book someday about all this stuff?
They ask me about that. I don't think anybody cares.
I would read that book. Yeah, everybody wants to know about those classic celebrities, though.
Yeah.
I'm so old that half the people I just mentioned, you don't even know who they are.
So, I do.
I don't know. Do you really?
Well, I'm a Hollywood aficionado as well. So okay, I have great appreciation for the old films that were made much before I was born.
Yeah, that's good, but not everybody's like you. And if you walk up to a, look, a lot of times when I'm signing autographs, I'll say, were you a fan of Double Dare, or what would you do, or Unwrapped? And they'll say, what's Double Dare?
No way.
Yeah. They'll say,
they know you from Food Network.
Yeah, only know you from Food Network.
Wow.
So it's interesting generationally what happens over the years,
Yeah.
Can't talk to you without bringing up 1994 and your famous encounter with Burt Reynolds. But I don't want to ask this. I don't want you to tell me the story. We can go on YouTube for all that. What I want to know is, you guys were very quick-witted. It was obviously a in the moment situation that happened. But what I really want to know is what happened after the camera rolled. When they stopped filming, what goes on backstage? I don't think I've ever heard you. I've heard you tell the story a bunch of times, but what happened after?
Well, when they went to commercial and I was covered with whipped cream and Burt was covered with whipped cream, NBC, first of all, is trying to clean me up. And the attorneys from NBC came up to me. Don't worry, we'll buy you a new suit. Are you okay? Okay. Because they thought that Burt had hurt me first when he threw the cup at me. And then when he hit me with the pie, he hit me pretty hard. And so they were afraid of a lawsuit. And so the attorneys were on me instantaneously saying, we'll take care of everything. Do you need to see a doctor? Are you okay? And so they cleaned me up. Burt got cleaned up. And if you look, when we come back from break, he's gone. He got up and left, went in his car, and went home.
Oh.
So
I didn't see the end of that clip.
Yeah. He left. And so, Jay came to me and what's going on here? What happened? We were both sort of in shock about what he was doing. What happened a year later, I really can't talk about it because I met his manager and he explained to me what was going on with Burt. And because he's no longer here, I don't want to get into what I learned after the fact, but he was a troubled guy. And, I guess the sad part is, how do you go from being the #1 box office star in the world, and then when you, get in your later years, you're basically penniless? It's kind of a sad story. And there's other stories behind those stories. But, it happened in 1994, and it's hard to go a week without somebody bringing it up and wanting to ask a lot of questions about it. And most people thought it was all set up. It wasn't. It was spontaneous.
Right.
Certainly, I'm not that good of an actor. I could have never pulled off what I did there. And it was survival of the fittest, quite honestly. I'd waited my whole life to get on the Tonight Show, and I wasn't going to let this jerk, screw up my life. So it became what it became.
He stole your moment.
Yeah.
I couldn't.
He tried.
Yeah. Well, I mean,
and what's interesting is, when it was going on, when I was watching it, you guys were going back and forth. But then after you came back from the commercial break, when you guys were still there, he hugged you, and I was like,
he hugged
okay.
me and whispered in my ear, "I only did this because I really like you." And then took his book and he said to me, "This is during the commercial before he left. What's your broad's name?" I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "Your broad." I said, "My wife?" And he goes, "Yeah, your broad." And he wrote to Mark and Alice, love, I forget what it is. The book is in my garage somewhere, but it was, "Hey, you're a good guy, Burt Reynolds, So
Wow.
What can I tell you? And the next day I was at a friend of mine's house who's a big producer director guy. And he said, "Whoa, that was crazy." He goes, "I know Burt's publicist. Do you want me to call him and see what Burt said?" And I went, "Yeah, I'd be curious." And he said, "Burt called me a bottom feeder of show business who didn't give the movie star any respect." So, I mean, give me a break.
what's ridiculous about that is you're sitting in the middle between the two. You're talking to the host who's interviewing you. Obviously, you're going to look that direction. It's like,
Yeah.
weird. That was our next question, though. Is if
Jay was new, and if Johnny was there at the end when we were going to pie Jay and he pussied out, Johnny would have taken the pie. That would have been the proper comedic thing to do. So
Jay ran away several times.
Yeah, give me a break.
So what Burt probably didn't realize is, and we mentioned this earlier in the interview, is that you were at least suffering from OCD, whether it was diagnosed or not. Your bout with obsessive compulsive disorder was on full display when you went on segments from Dateline to Oprah. And the most surprising things to many viewers like me was the fixing, not that you would fix so many things, but even like the very small things like the fringe of a carpet. First of all, somebody with OCD, I'm surprised, has a carpet that has so many fringes on each side to fix.
Yep.
But how difficult was that to go on national television on multiple shows and kind of air your personal life?
I wanted out of that world so bad. I was willing to do anything it took to move on. And when People Magazine did an article on me and I went on Oprah, my parents didn't talk to me for over a year. Why did you talk about that stuff? And you mentioned that we do it, and we don't do that stuff. Oh, they were worse than me. And so we didn't talk for about a year. And I was up in Chicago, and I said, "Come on up and let's have a conversation." They said, "No, you come down to Indianapolis." I said, "Here's the deal: either come to Chicago and see me, or we'll never talk again." So they drove up, and we had a conversation and sort of put things back together. I guess it was my way of whatever psychological craziness I was going through. I just wanted it out of my life. I've never done drugs. I'm not a drinker. I don't, I'm not an alcoholic. But I compare it to that I had been suffering with OCD for so long, and until you're ready to stop, I've had many friends who have gone to rehab 3, 4, 5 times before they got out of it, and I was just ready to get on. So whatever it took, talking about it, going on Oprah, talking on the Today Show, whatever it was, I just wanted it out of my life. And so I don't have any second thoughts. And probably the best thing I ever did, I wrote a book called Everything in Its Place. And people come up to me to this day and say, "I watched you on Oprah, I watched you on the Today Show, I got your book. I didn't know what I had until you came out and talked about it. Thank you, you changed my life." So to me, it was a real positive. There's no negative to it at all.
You were set to host Hollywood Squares until your Oprah appearance. Is that correct?
I was signed to do Squares, had a contract, and went to do an episode of Rosie O'Donnell, singing and dancing game show host. Chuck Woolery comes up to me and goes, "Hey, Summers, I heard you're no longer going to be hosting Squares." I said, "News to me." And he said, "Well, if you're not going to do it, I'd love the job." So I, called my agent. He goes, "I don't know what he's talking about." And so all these rumors started to happen about, I was hired, but I was going to be fired. And I was in Philadelphia doing a personal appearance, and I was at dinner at the time that was supposed to be the top restaurant in the country, Lebec Fin, French place. And it was with Harvey, our announcer. And I said, let me just check my answering machine. That's how long ago this
Right.
was. Let me check my answering machine. And then we'll go and sit and have dinner. And on my answering machine was, hi, this is executive from King World. We're looking for the next David Letterman or the next major motion picture star. You're neither. You're fired. Don't even call us to discuss it. Click. So I played it back 3 times because I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
Wow.
I still have that tape, by the way, of that moron saying that stuff to me. And so, now go and have dinner with your best friend. I was sad as hell and got on the phone, and I was replaced. And, started a lawsuit, settled out of court, and, because I had a deal. So it was not and the deal was, they thought I was crazy, that they had seen these things about obsessive compulsive disorder, and they started saying that I was difficult to work with, and one thing or another, none of which was true. And I got bumped. And so interesting part of my career, obviously didn't stop things because things progressed afterwards with a 20-year relationship with Food Network. But at the time, it was pretty devastating.
Do you think, being in 2021, if the same situations happened where you did make your personal struggle public, do you think that that would have happened again today? That you'd lose a job about
not
that?
at all. No, and look, Howie Mandel's gotten a pass. For some reason, his OCD is certainly more extreme than mine, and, they've made a joke out of it, and, it is what it is. Who knows? But now you can talk about anything, I can come out and say, I only, I'm an LGBTQ RS LMNOP person, and nobody would care.
Right.
And by the way, as it should be. But back then, when I came out with my OCD,
Right.
I guess it was scary stuff.
And how is it going for you today? Like, is it pretty much out of your
I
life?
always say that I'm 82% cured. I don't think you're 100% cured. I have the tools to know how to deal with it. And so that's good. But as far as being 100% cured, that's never going to happen.
Let's jump to talking about fans, because on Fancounters, our big hook of the show is that we get our celebrity guests to talk about some of their favorite times that they've met fans, encounters that might stick in your head and be very memorable. Do any stay in your head as far as some very fun or weird or different kind of...
I'm always surprised who was a fan. I was sitting in the audience at Hamilton, and about 5 minutes before the show, the stage manager, company manager, came and tapped me on the shoulder, and he said, Mr. Miranda, heard you were in the audience. Could you come backstage afterwards and meet him? And it's like, yeah. And so I went backstage, and all I wanted to do was talk about Hamilton, and all Lynn wanted to talk about was, remember the time you did this.
Yeah.
So that was pretty cool. I mean, I can tell you, Neil Patrick Harris, first time I met him. I mean, the people who grew up watching the program, who are celebrities now, and the impact that it had on them, well, it's fascinating to me, and I'm always, thrilled to hear it. And then right before COVID, we did Double Dare came back. We shot 60 new episodes. Liza Koshy was the host. I was the exec producer and co-host announcer. And I decided to take it back on the road. We had toured it for many years, and I did a 70-city, 18-month tour. And the impact, people would pay to do these meet and greets where they come back and get to take pictures and shake hands. The stories and what the program meant to them. Back in the day, Nickelodeon was this behemoth, oh my God, run home, get off the bus and turn it on.
Absolutely.
Kind of situation.
Yep.
And so, now I'm talking to people in their 40s who have 8-year-olds who, same age they were when they were, so I'm always touched by it and glad that we were able to bring. I've been lucky to do entertainment that moms and dads and kids could sit and watch. Double Dare, What Would You Do? Unwrapped, Dinner Impossible, Restaurant Impossible. Every show I've done has been family viewing, and I'm proud of that. Now when I did stand up, did I do things that would shock people? Maybe, I suppose. Look, Howie Mandel, when you see his stand up act, your head explodes. Bob Saget, your head explodes.
Saget, for sure.
I wasn't that extreme, but I did impressions and said things that would probably shock people. But doing stand up is different than hosting a kids show.
Much.
So
You did nail me, by the way. I'm in my 40s and I have 2 8-year-olds, so just saying.
Do you really?
Yeah.
See, there you go. You're my audience, man.
I am. I was totally your audience. Did you ever meet any of the kids on the show from that time period in the 90s that like as adults now?
Strangest one of those stories was I'm in a restaurant and server comes and goes, "How you doing?" I went, "Fine. How are you?" He goes, "Do you recognize me?" And I went, "No, I don't." And he goes, "Well, come on, man. I was on Double Dare. I was like, the dancing tatas or something." I went, "How old were you?" He said, 11. I said, "How old are you now?" He said, 21. I said, "And you expect me to recognize you from the time you were 11 to you're 21? That was in Philadelphia. You're in Los Angeles now." And he got all pissed off at me. He goes, "Jesus, I thought you were a nice guy," and walked away pissed. And it's like, what are you thinking? I said, I don't look the same when I was 34. And now that I'm, whatever age I was, 48.
Right.
Why do you think I would recognize you? So, and he got all bent out of shape. That's the only story I have of that. Although a couple of people did come up to us. In fact, we did an episode of the new Double Dares where we brought back parents who were on the show when they were kids. They brought their kids on. That was cool. I enjoyed doing that.
A couple of years ago, you talked about your interest in Broadway. Now it's been shut down for almost a year. But when it comes back, will that be the next thing for you? It seems like a perfect time since everything will be starting up at once.
And we're having conversations as we speak. Theaters have contacted me about my one-man show, and it's the hardest work I've ever done in my entire life. It's a 70-page script to put it back to memory and remember the whole thing. But yeah, we're working on it for 2022 right now. I'm very excited about it.
That's awesome. That's very cool. One of the most iconic game shows is The Price is Right, and you did host The Price is Right Live, which was a touring version of that game show. And I found an interesting story that you talked about possibly being Bob Barker's replacement, and then you kind of made an embarrassing phone call to him that didn't quite go the way you thought.
Wow. How did you know that story?
Look, Mark, I do my research.
Yeah. Whoa. Nobody's ever asked me that.
Oh, good.
Yeah. So there was an exec producer who worked on the show who wanted me to be Bob's replacement. But, here's what you got to realize. Bob really had nothing to do with the choice. Okay. Mm-hmm. It was CBS. It was Les Moonves. And we all know that he's out of work now. Yeah. And so Roger called me and said, "I want you to call Bob." Now, I've known Bob since True the Consequences days. It was the first job I had in 1974. I used to work. Bob Barker had a production company. I used to work and write questions for run-throughs for his show. So I know Bob really well. He used to call him his birthday every year, on and on. So it's not like we didn't have a relationship.
Right.
And he says, "Why don't you call up Bob and invite him to dinner?" I went, I've never done that. I don't really. No, do it. Oh, okay. So I hung up. I called, "Hey, Bob, Marc Summers, how you doing?" "Hey, good. How you doing?" "Fine." I said, I haven't seen you in a while. Why don't we go out to dinner?" Long pause. He goes, "Why? Because you want my job on Price is Right?" And I went, he said, "Who put you up for this call?" And I said, now I feel like hell. And he goes, "Who told you to call me?" And I said, "Roger." And he goes, "I'll have a conversation with him tomorrow." He said, "Look, Mark, here's the deal. I will put your name, on the list. I virtually have nothing to do with it. I'm a big fan. I really admire your work, but taking me out to dinner isn't going to get you the job." And so now I hang up, and then I call Roger, and I go, "Roger, Jesus Christ, you just put me in the most awkward situation in the world." And, it was uncomfortable. Now, fast forward the tape. Neil Patrick Harris, who is the nicest human, you can list nicest people in show business. Everybody says Henry Winkler's number one, and I would have to agree. He's just
I hear
the
that
nicest
all the
man
time.
in the world.
Yeah.
Oh, he's the best. He's the best. I did a show with him that he produced. And next would probably be Neil Patrick Harris. And Neil, unbeknownst to me, called Moonves, who was a star, what-er, and said, you should let Marc Summers be the host, because what Bob Barker is to the generation now,
yes,
Marc Summers is to my generation, and he would have a huge following. And Les Moonves said, quote, "Number one, I have no idea who Marc Summers is. And number two, I just hired somebody for the job." And so that's how I found out who had got the job, because Moonves told Neil. Neil called me, and that's how I found out that deal. But yeah, show business is not for sissies. That's all I can tell you. It's a tough business.
You would have had that show figured out, well, at least by now.
Listen, I did it on the road so many times. I could do it blindfolded with
I'm
two
sure.
hands tied behind my back. But and the guy doing it now, who will remain nameless, still doesn't understand the show. But that's a whole other story.
We know, we're viewers. So we talked about Double Dare Live and all of that. With COVID happening, is that possible that would start touring again? I mean, if you're going to do Broadway in 2022, I guess not, but.
Had a phone call about it yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Stand by.
Okay. Put Milwaukee on the list and don't stay at that hotel that we will not mention.
Not staying at that hotel again. No, last time we played Milwaukee, we had a good time. We had a good crowd. They were nice people. But we're trying to figure out how to do it.
There's a real nice hotel by my house I could recommend for you.
Really?
Yeah.
It's
called?
The Tracy B&B.
It's a Hampton Inn and Suites, and it's really nice. Fresh, a few years old. It's really nice.
What I used to do is I used to have the tour manager go into each city. The budget sometimes was higher than others, depending on what city we're playing, whatever. And so I always prefer to stay at, Four Seasons kinds of places, but there's not a Four Seasons every city you go into. So I would have them call and find out the newest hotel, whether it's a Hampton Inn or a Holiday Inn or whatever it was, and go to the newest place because chances are you're going to be, okay. Look, after a while, staying in hotels, we were on a bus that we would go from city to city, but, the first 10 shows, we'd go from literally South Carolina to Louisville, Kentucky, to Chicago and down to North Carolina. It was nuts. But we made the tour a little bit easier the next time, where it was like, Columbus, Ohio, Indianapolis, Cincinnati, Toledo, and they were, 4-hour jumps. So you'd get to a hotel at 1 a.m, but, you didn't have to be on stage for rehearsal till 4. But, you wanted to have good food in a place that was clean and comfortable. That's all I'm looking for. And sometimes you go to some cities, it ain't that easy.
No.
I want to do a follow-up question before I forget. You mentioned that sometimes you tape 5 to 6 shows of Double Dare in a day. And obviously that set gets destroyed every episode. So what is the time frame that you're filming these in? I mean, how much is a cleanup and reset time?
Well, in Philly, it was tough because we were in a tiny studio and we had a great crew that was able to clean up quickly. Down in Orlando, we had built drains into the floor. So they had these massive, squeegees. And literally, while they were shooting me from the waist up, the contestants, they were down there with these squeegees putting it into this drain that was taking it out into the sewer system. So that wasn't bad. And the way we would do it is we would do 3 upfront games and then 3 obstacle courses, and then break for lunch, do 3 upfront games and do 3 obstacle courses. The problem for me is by the time it's 4:30 in the afternoon and you're doing your second obstacle course, you don't remember who won. Was it the Bodacious Tatas or the, whatever team? And I used to go to the producers, okay, what happened? Did they come from behind? Did they win by a physical challenge? You had to kind of remind yourself what was going on because, doing that many shows in a day would make your head spin. But somehow we pulled it off,
I would never have guessed that that's how you tape that show.
It was
bizarre.
The most efficient way. Yeah, it seemed to work. And, so if you did the first episode and you won, you had to go backstage and wait for episode 2 to episode 3. And you were the last person to do the obstacle course. You'd get there 8 a.m. and you wouldn't get done with the obstacle course sometimes till 1 p.m.
Wow. Crazy.
Yeah.
Did you have anything?
I don't have anything.
I got one more question. Oh, well, I guess 2 questions. I did have on my sheet to ask if you had ever, because we talked about the Jeopardy thing early on with Aaron Rodgers. Was that ever a job that your agent thought that maybe you should have your hat in the ring for?
I could do it. I heard through the grapevine, I think I'm too old.
Wow.
Alex was old. Come on.
I know. So they have no interest in me.
Okay.
And to a point, I get it because, you want somebody who's going to be around for the next 20 years. I'll be 70 this year. And so, I'm not going to be around doing the show when I'm 90. So from that perspective, if I was exec producing the show, I wouldn't be hosting it. But number one, you want somebody who's mid to late 40s who's going to be around for a while. So, and I don't know that I want to work that hard anymore. Going out and doing 5 shows a day with the intensity of that program and following in those shoes. You know what? I haven't watched Jeopardy in 20 years. I've never seen an episode of Wheel of Fortune.
Wow.
And those are not the kind of shows that interest me, quite honestly. I used to watch Jeopardy when it was on NBC, when Art Fleming was the host. So it was many, many moons ago. And I know Trebek is good. I can tell you tons of Trebek stories. But he obviously nailed it, and the fans loved him. So do you go for total opposites or do you try and, get something similar? Right. I don't know. So no, I never really had an interest in auditioning for it, quite honestly.
Do you still do your magic?
Occasionally, I have two grandkids. When I went to do my one-man show a couple of years ago, and I hadn't been on stage performing live in a long time, I went back and did a week at the Magic Castle to kind of get my skills back in shape. And it kind of is like riding a bicycle. You get back right up and do it. So, it's fun. I made a living doing it for a while. Don't think I'd ever want to go back and do that. Too much pressure. When it was a hobby, it was more fun. Yeah. But I still enjoy magic.
Did you have a favorite trick?
I did a trick where I would just somebody pick a card and tell them to remember it and then divide it in half. And the reveal was they picked the 7 of clubs, so it was 3.5 of clubs. And I would turn around a card and it was 3.5 of clubs, which back in the day was this, oh my God, shocking thing.
Yeah.
But it was kind of my signature piece for many years at the Magic Castle and onwards. And, magicians used to make fun of me because nobody wanted to do that trick, but I would get 15 minutes out of the 3.5 of clubs. And to this day, people would scratch their heads and go, I don't know how Summers did it, but he did it. So I got a lot out of that, sort of mindless kind of trick. I was never a great sort of sleight of hand artist. And so I did comedy magic and admired the guys who were the David Copperfield types, but I wasn't part of that world.
Okay.
Last question for you today. We're going to end with this one. What is your favorite story to tell? If I knew what question to ask.
You're good. I like this. What is my favorite story to tell? Here it is. Just because you're on TV, you're not special. Okay. And it's the old thing. It's nice to be important, but it's more important to be nice. Mm-hmm. When I was first diagnosed with cancer, I was sitting in a hospital getting ready to go in for my first infusion. And I was sitting next to a man who said to me, I went to University of Pennsylvania Hospital and I said, I really don't want people to know that I've got cancer. Is there sort of a back door or back way I can come in? I really don't want to be noticed. They went, sorry, you're just like every other patient. You'll come in the front door and you're going to do what everybody does. And I respected that. So I'm sitting in this waiting room, nervous as hell, waiting to go for my first infusion. And a guy sitting next to me says, excuse me, are you who I think you are? And I said, Bob Barker. And he said, no, Marc Summers. I said, yeah. He said, why are you here? And I said, for the same reason you are. And he said, what do you mean? I said, I'm here to get my first chemo. And he said to me, I didn't think guys like you got cancer. And to this day, I get chills now thinking about it. Why did he think because I was on television, I was not susceptible to everything else that everybody else is? I put on my pants the same way. I have to pay taxes. I have to pay the rent. And so I'm always shocked that people think because they see you on a large screen or you're in their home, there's something magical about your life. Trust me, there's nothing magical about my life at all. I've had the same hardships. Maybe I've worked a little harder than some to get where I am. And I have this, never say no attitude. But that's always made me scratch my head about people thinking just because you're, a quasi-celebrity, there's something special about you. And trust me, there ain't nothing special about me at all.
They kind of feel that people in celebrity status are invincible.
Yeah, and it ain't true. I've had a lot of friends in the entertainment industry, huge names that you would know, who have scary problems. Yeah. And, maybe you have to hide them because you don't want it to affect your job and the way the public reflects back at you. Mm-hmm. But, my life is an open book. When you guys call and say, is there anything that you won't talk about? I'll talk about anything. My life's an open book. I've talked about OCD. I've talked about cancer, my car accident where I broke every bone in my face. I'm an open book. I have no secrets. If you can go unfold some magical stone of something I've never spoke about, I'd love to know what that is because, it's all out there.
Nice. Well, I'm really glad you didn't say no to our interview. We got hooked up through a mutual friend, and once he said, "Oh yeah, he's been my friend for 40 years or whatever it was," I'm like, I literally have never asked a guest for another guest.
Really?
But
yeah.
in that instance, I had to. And he's like,
Mark
I will text him.
We used to stand in line on Monday nights at the Comedy Store on Sunset trying to become regulars there. That was 1976. And we both became regulars right about the same time. And, he went on to this great producing and writing career. And, I went in a whole other direction. I called in, you'd call in for spots, and you'd end up getting initially, 1 in the morning, the Lovers and Drunk shows and things like that. And after 3 years of finally working up to, primetime spots, I called and I said, Mitzi wants to talk to you. And I pick up the phone and she goes, Mark, there's nothing else I can do for you. I'm not going to book you in the Comedy Store anymore. And it's like, oh God, now what am I going to do? Because our goal was to get on the Tonight Show and get a sitcom, but it lit a firecracker up my ass, quite honestly, and propelled me to go do what I should have done all along, which was be a host. I was never going to be a stand-up comic. I didn't have the wit, the wisdom, and the intelligence of a Jay Leno or a David Letterman or a Robin Williams or a Richard Pryor. I worked around all those guys and admired the hell out of them. Gary Shandling would look at my act after I did it and come to me and tell me how to move words around and take words out and put words in different places, because he was a joke master and he knew how to do that. I never had that skill, but I was real good at being Marc Summers. And so I found my calling as a host, and it's worked. And, when you realize I've been on a lot of cartoons, I've been on, I can't think of the Cleveland Show and Loud Family. I always play Marc Summers. Because I'm good at being me.
Yep.
And so that's what I found. That's what I should be doing. That's what I'm the best at.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. I hope you have a good rest of your day.
Yeah, thanks, Mark. It was a lot of
This
fun.
was a dream. Cross
you guys
this
were
one
terrific.
off.
Thank you so much. Great job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Our thanks to Marc Summers for joining us on the show this week. He was great.
Oh my gosh, he was a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I knew he would be because, and I kind of at the end I was like, can you just say ready, set, go for me? Because he's like, ready, set, go. But I was like, that's kind of degrading. I'm not going to make him do that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so we talked at the beginning of the episode. We wanted to do another podcast review today.
Yes, we did.
All right, so let's get into doing that. This is Smartless. It's hosted by Jason Bateman, Will Arnett, and Sean Hayes, and they have a brand new opening to their podcast.
Oh boy.
Do you want to hear it?
Yeah, I want to hear it.
Okay, here we go.
Okay, guys, so the gang said that we need to do some new intros, Sean. So do you want to take it away? We need a really good, solid intro. Go.
It's really nothing. We just kind of sit around and
It's a
talk.
podcast about nothing.
FYI, I don't really do podcasts.
Exactly. That's not really the opening. I cut that together, but
Okay.
it really should be the opening of it. So this particular episode they had on Julia Louis-Dreyfus, obviously a guest that I would never say no to. Julia, if you ever want to do a podcast, even though you don't do podcasts, you can come on this show.
That'd be awesome.
You'd have a much better time, I'm
Yes,
sure.
you would. Yes.
So let's start off with Will Arnett. Small problem with Will. You can't eat on the mic. Now, a few times when Elizabeth was my co-host, I would nail her a lot because I'm like, you can't be crunching while we're talking to a guest. And I expect that out of a podcast of this level, but with celebrities in the entertainment industry, I would not expect to hear this.
I was scrolling through the guide this week, and the bucket list was on. And I know you guys know, and I talk about it a lot, but
Wait.
Hey, can we not chew while we're recording? You're not on a break, Chunk.
So I'm glad that Jason Bateman kind of cut that off
no
at the
kidding.
pass, but like, why do you think that's okay? I don't understand that.
Should we bring snacks and start eating while we're doing a show?
Maybe. The least qualified person on Smartless, I think, is Sean Hayes. He tries way too hard. He doesn't really have anything to contribute. So I have this clip that's called Sean Asks the Hard Questions.
Oh, boy.
yeah, you don't stop working. Aren't you exhausted?
I am a little tired.
What a question. You don't stop working. Are you tired?
I would have never thought to ask that.
You have 45 minutes with a guest, and that's what you want to talk about?
And a guest that's like big name. I mean, she's done a lot of work.
Yeah. Now, I started clipping things that were visuals on the show because they talked about Will Arnett's mustache in the first 1 minute of the thing. This is a podcast. They don't do video, and we can't see you. So they talked about that visually. They talked about something else, and I thought, when the third one came around, I thought, all right, I got to clip it and talk about it, because on a podcast, you don't be like, Tracy, that's a really nice shirt you're wearing, when no one can see it, right?
Absolutely.
Okay, well, here's what he does.
So Sean,
you want to see my scar? You want to see my scar?
Yeah.
So wait, you can see like a little hole there.
I can't see
Sean, that's a
anything.
C-section.
Neither can we. It does not belong in the podcast.
No.
Oh my gosh. The other thing about Sean Hayes that really drives me crazy is Sean asks questions to guests, doesn't let them answer, and only says what he says so that he can tell a story.
Going back to the funny, humiliating stories, because they're my favorite. Those and medical stories I love, because I have tons.
I do too.
I almost died 2 years ago when my small intestine burst open in the middle of the night, and I went to Cedars, drove myself.
He goes on and on and on. But did you hear that? I do too, Julia says. Wouldn't you be like, oh yeah, well, what is one of those stories? Could you share with us? Nope. He went on for like 4 minutes to tell about how his intestine burst and he almost died.
Was the show about him or was it about Julia Louis-Dreyfus?
It's supposed to be about her.
Okay.
This one's called Sean Asks Follow-Up Flops. This is a follow-up that he tries to make a joke and it completely doesn't land at all.
I love working too because so I don't have to be with myself.
But the stuff. But think about the thing.
I don't have to be with myself. How is that?
Yeah.
I'm with myself all the time.
It's me, myself, and I. That's
how are you
going to
get away from it? Crazy. Yeah. So I have the group is funny and not Sean. I'm not sure what this one is. I forgot.
It's fun to work with people that you like, needless to say, and who are funny. And all three of you guys are. Maybe one or two of you are funnier than others within the group. But I won't. I mean, just to be.
I'm working on it, though.
See, he goes, I know what you mean, Jason Bateman, but really he knows that there's one person lacking in this group, right?
Yeah.
But they're all lacking. I want you guys to pop some popcorn. Get a snack, okay? And this is how much laughing occurs in a 40-minute episode.
Where's our popcorn?
I didn't bring any. You people at home should be getting some popcorn or at least a refreshment. This is what we heard for, I don't know. I'm not going to tell you how long it is. You're just going to have to sit and listen. But this is the amount of laughing that goes on in Smartless, and I can guarantee you there's nothing that's this funny.
I was
always talking all the
I've never laughed this hard on my own show.
Yeah. And we've heard some funny stuff.
Yeah.
Well, definitely. But
I like working.
You got my one act?
I got the one act and I got the feature and I've gotten a few things.
Mm-hmm.
I knew.
Some of it's very forced though too. Like, did you hear that? Ha ha.
Yeah.
It's like you don't even have to try. There's enough laughing in this episode where you don't have to fake it.
If it's funny, it's going to come natural.
Yeah.
To be funny.
We're still going, guys.
This is one episode.
But
huh?
you,
Yeah.
but did.
wait a minute. I'm like,
Was this still while you were?
Dr. Phil is.
There's still 30 more seconds.
Oh my word!
I've got the.
It's crazy. This is why people who are best friends shouldn't host a podcast together because it's all a lot of inside jokes people don't get.
Yeah, but you and I are best friends, and we do a podcast, and we don't do this.
Well, because we let our guests speak.
Correct.
We'll just finish this up for fun because I clipped it and it took forever.
This is unbelievable.
Mm-hmm.
You got
How?
Like, did you hear that though?
Yeah. Wow.
Ugh.
Okay, I want to know how people can actually sit and listen to that show.
I don't know. I don't know.
I would turn it off within the first few minutes.
Well, and to come to be a guest on the show where it's just this like laugh heads. I call them the chuckle heads. I've said that on the past few shows. This is the guys explaining that they're really surprised they get celebrity guests.
Wow. It's just so flattering. These yeses from these superstars.
Didn't that sound very condescending? Like,
Yeah, it
we're
did.
the best ever. I just can't believe they'd come on my show. Like, seriously, be humble. Be like, I'm really grateful you're here kind of thing.
Exactly.
So Julia Louis-Dreyfus was telling a story about the time that she saw Barbra Streisand at a White House Correspondents' Dinner, and she was a big fan of Barbra, okay? And this is her going up to meet Barbra Streisand, and then you're going to hear what Barbra says back to Julia.
Okay.
Tell me if you get the joke.
Okay.
I don't get it, but they seem to.
Saw she was over there, and I've got to say something. And so
They're already laughing.
And I went over to her and I said, "Hey, Barbara, I'm Julie Louis-Dreyfus, and I just wanted to tell you, just it's such a treat to meet you." And she said something like, "No, I already told them what I wanted."
There was no joke there.
That's hilarious.
Isn't that good?
way.
I swear.
I don't get the joke.
I don't
I already
either.
told them what I wanted.
There's nothing funny about that.
No, but they thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
You know, what's part of it, I think, is some nervous laughter. I think these guys are not great at just being a normal person. That I think they feel like they're on stage, but yet they know they have to be normal. So it's kind of like this giddy, nervous laughter that I might let a little too much about my real personality show. What do you think?
Or they're overdoing it.
I don't know, but I don't find podcasts that just continually have the slapstick thing. I don't know. Oh, this is Sean Hayes. Julie Louis-Dreyfus is talking about the time that she got her first period. So Sean, not to be left out of the conversation, has this to say.
Uh-oh.
I remember when I got my period when I was really young.
Me too.
And
And then they giggle.
Really?
You're a boy. You don't get a period.
No.
Unbelievable. What else do I have from this show? I don't know what this is, but we'll end with this one because it's the last clip I pulled.
The story is void of any celebrity interaction, but
well,
still kind of.
I know.
Take it for what it is. I don't know.
So they're
I just
saying
found
that the
clip
show
funny.
is boring. Well, obviously.
Yeah. Anyway, so
Okay.
that's Smartless review for this week. And if you love Smartless, go on and tell us. Email us at hello@fancounters.com. Prove me wrong. Prove to me that Smartless is a fantastic show.
I would love to hear people's input because from what I hear all the time, I can't listen to it.
We're going to continue to pull clips from that show and try and talk about that weekly going forward.
Sounds like a plan.
Because it shouldn't be a show that has as many sponsors as it does, when this is a show that does well in the listenership and does not have a sponsor. So I don't know.
Well, we got to work on that.
I know.
Does that mean we have to do as you? We hold somebody and go, this is what we're doing.
Yes. Actually, some company I told you on a previous episode, they sent me a spa pillow. I know. And they're like, if you
hold somebody,
post about it and talk about it. Yes. Actually, some company I told you on a previous episode, they sent me a spa pillow. They only sent one. Like, if you post about it and talk about it.
You didn't tell me you have a co-host?
No, I was like, all right, send it to me.
Oh, you're fired.
I didn't ask. They only sent one. Two. I was happy to get one. Oh, cheapers.
You didn't tell me you have a co-host?
Anyway, that's going to do it for this week.
Where's my
we
spa
appreciate
pillow?
Marc Summers for being here.
I didn't ask.
I was
going
to ask for two. I was happy to get one. Smartless podcast, so we could talk about
You didn't
that.
tell me you have a
And next week on the show, we have another celebrity guest. For being here, we appreciate the humor that is the Smartless podcast. In the meantime, hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. If you're just listening on the show, we have another celebrity guest. Was on. We want you to come back. The whole thing.
You bet.
And you can check it out on YouTube. In the meantime, hit subscribe on our YouTube channel. If you're just listening to this podcast,
see ya.
Was on video.
You bet.
All right. You can check it out on YouTube. Hit